Hello, today I am going to take up British administration topic. As you know, I have started section 2 in which I have done already Mauryan administration and Mughal administration. Today I will discuss British administration. As you know that Indian administration is as old as Indian political system. However, you find there is continuity of value system from time immemorial. However, its present setup is outcome of British rule in India. So, Indian administration is getting highly influenced by British administration wheresoever present structure is concerned. This topic is very important from BPSC exam perspective. There has been 4 times question from this topic. In recent, there has not been question from this topic, but this topic is very important from two perspectives. First, making your understanding more clear, and second, suppose some question come this time, you will be in position to address the answer. This topic is very elaborate one. I will try to narrate in very simple and very specified form. You are required to go through one book also, and while taking my classes as well as reading one book, try to write your own answer. See, so I will discuss evolution of Indian administration during British period. You know, British in India came as a East India Company for trade practices. Their concern was confined to trade activity, but here they got a very right political administrative opportunity, and in course of time it established as the major political administrative forces authority. Getting point? Its administration has long span which can be discussed under several heads. I have tried to discuss this topic under 2 heads. If you take discussion on the basis of time phases, then I divided under 3 phases. First phase is from 1600 to 1772. Second phase from 1773 to 1857. And third phase from 1858 to 1947. On the other hand, I try to discuss this topic under heads like development of constitutional government, evaluation of civil services, evaluation of secretarial system, development of provincial administration, then development of financial administration, development of judicial administration, and evaluation of local administration. Get your point? So, if you notice that pattern of question, sometimes there was question you have to discuss in general, trace out the evaluation of Indian administration during British rule. That was question. Once there was question that from 1999 to 1935 or from 1858 to 1935, what were major administrative development during British rule? There was also question. That one question was there, the British administration in India influence its structure and its nature and structure, whether this influence is still continuing, or this type of question are also being asked. So I remember this type of question came. That's why it is very important. You know, as I told, I would like to discuss first of all the development between 600 to 1772. Get a point? As I told that East India Company came India for trade practices. Get a point? They came India for trade practices, and their administration were confined to 3 residential towns, namely Calcutta, then Bombay and Madras. Gradually they became province. So Bombay, Calcutta and Bengal and Madras. Each province was headed by governor. Governor was supported by one executive council, one secretariat, so having some department, having limited administrative and legislative power. They were supposed to function under the control of governing body of East India Company, that is Court of Directors. Getting your point? So these were supposed to work under that one. There is no confusion. But in 1757 there was Battle of Plassey, and 1764 Battle of Buxar had fatal outcome, and that has given East India Company authority to collect revenue and having administrative power. So in course of time, East India Company acquired administrative and financial power, and it became the most important political authority. Getting a point? So why I have pointed out 17 and 72 as well to point, because in 17 and 72 the post of district collector was created by Warren Hastings, and it led the emergence of civil services. He led the foundation of civil service in India, Warren Hastings. Clear? Now we will discuss 1773 to 1857. This is a very important period. During this period, several laws or acts were enacted to exercise control over Indian affairs and to give lease of power to continue business for further 20 years. So 1773 is known by 1773 Regulating Act. This act for the first time gave opportunity to British rule to exercise control over Indian affairs. This act also laid foundation of central administration in India. This act made Governor of Bengal as Governor General of Bengal. Warren Hastings was first Governor General of Bengal. The rest two governors, like Governor of Bombay and Governor of Madras, were made subordinated to him. There was also a provision of Supreme Court at Calcutta. Getting point? So 1773 Regulating Act has two specific features. First feature was that for the first time British government interfered in Indian affairs for the first time, number one. Or number two, it laid foundation of central administration in India. Get a point? In 1784, Pitt's India Act came. Through this act, British government established direct control over Indian affairs. It created a post of body of control over governing body of East India Company, that is Court of Directors. So now there is board of control having 6 members representing British cabinet, exercising control over Court of Directors. So you can say it was the first time when British government established direct control over East India Company. Get it point? In the meanwhile, several Charter Act came. Charter Act 1793, Charter Act 1813, Charter Act 1833, Charter Act 1853. These Charter Act were supposed to give power to continue business for 20 years, further 20 years to East India Company, and to exercise necessary control over Indian affairs. In which 1833 Charter Act is very important one. This act made the Governor General of Bengal as Governor General of India. William Bentinck was first Governor General of India. This act also empowered British government to exercise control over entire territory occupied by East India Company in India. This also gave some sort of centralization tendency. It deprived of legislative power of provinces. It deprived commercial activity of East India Company and made it a purely political unit. It also introduced the law member in Executive Council of Governor General, which became the foundation of, you can say, central legislature in India. During this period, there was recruitment on the basis of patronage. So this act tried to remove patronage system and tried to introduce open competitive system. But due to resistance by board of director, it was not further continued. So 1833 Charter Act is very important for several perspectives. First, it made Governor General of Bengal as Governor General of India. Number two, it caused centralization of authority. Number three, it deprived of commercial activity of East India Company. Number four, it made provision of law member to Executive Council of Governor General, which made ultimate criteria, which laid foundation of central legislature in India. Get a point? And it also empowered British government to exercise control over entire territory occupied by East India Company in India. Get your point? In 1853, the patronage system was removed and it was replaced by open competitive system. This act also separated legislative function and executive function of Executive Council of Governor General. Get your point? So the patronage system is over now and it is replaced by open competitive system. Get your point? Now the 1853 revolt took place and it caused significant influence on overall functioning in India. The company rule was over and crown rule was started. So in 1858 to 1947 is very important period. 1858, Crown introduced, British government introduced Government of India Act 1858. This act is also known as Act of Good Governance. Through this act, the rule of East India Company was over and Crown rule was started. To assist Crown in Indian affairs, there was a post of Secretary of State to Government of India. This was basically a member of British Cabinet responsible to British Parliament for overall Indian affairs. To assist him, there was 15-member Executive Council, that is also known as Indian Council. The Secretary of India was to act on the advice of Governor General in India and to responsible to British Parliament for Indian affairs. Get your point? So 1858, having a Government of India Act was in solid efforts in direction of the commitment or the resolution given by Crown after 1857 revolt. First commitment she has given to give participation to Indian in administration, and number two, she will not impose any law without their consent, without consent of India. So this was basic commitment given by Crown to Indians. So that was the 1858 first major efforts in that direction. Then in 1861, that Indian Council Act was enacted. Indian Council Act was very important one in the direction of Indianization of Indian administrative system. It made for the first time to induct some Indian as non-official member for transacting in Legislative Council of Governor General. It was the first time Indians were allowed to nominate as non-official member in Legislative Council of Governor General. Get a point? It also gave statutory recognition to portfolio system. Portfolio system was introduced in 1857 by Lord Canning. Portfolio system made provision to make member of Executive Council of Governor General responsible for affairs of one or more department. So this was portfolio system, which laid foundation of cabinet system after independence. Get your point? So this was number three. It tried to do decentralization by getting back the authority to Bombay and Madras Executive Council. Next, it also it empowered Governor General to make law for efficient and convenient transaction of Executive Council of Governor of India. So several changes were introduced further in this direction in 1861 Indian Council Act. Getting point? In 1892, again Indian Council Act came. It introduced system of election, although it was of indirect nature, and it was also there. Although there was also provision of nomination, but for the first time, the element of election was introduced in 1892 Indian Council Act. It also enlarged the strength of its legislative council and also gave some deliberative function. It gave power to legislative member to discuss on budget and to ask questions from executive members. Getting point? In 1909, the Indian Council Act is also known as Morley Minto Reform. This act is very important one. This act named the Central Legislative Council as Imperial Legislative Council. It has increased its strength and it has also increased its function, but it is known for its communal electorate. For the first time, separate electorate were made for Muslim representative. This act legalized communalism. That's why Lord Minto is considered father of communalism in India. Father of communal electorate in India. So this was a very, you can say, far-sighting ill consequences on Indian system, which still we find as communalism. The main root of communalism is basically 1909 Morley Minto Reform. In 1919, Government of India Act came. This act is also known as Chelmsford-Montfort Reform. Montagu-Chelmsford Reform. Getting point? What is this? This is for this for the first time relax central control over state affair, provincial affair, and allowed province to make law in their respective subjects. It introduced provincial diarchy. Diarchy is basically Greek word. Diarchy means to rule. So at the province level, subjects were divided into two heads: transferred subject and reserved subjects. Transferred subjects were those subjects which were governed by governor on the advice of Indian minister and was to be responsible to provincial legislature. And reserved subjects were those subjects on which governor was supposed to act on the advice of his executive council and none responsible to provincial legislature. Get a point? This act for the first time introduced bicameralism in central level. So central legislature is now made Central Legislative Council and Central Legislative Assembly. This also made provision for direct election in both the houses. It also, in last, it made provision for 50% reservation to Indian in Executive Council of Governor General. That time there were 6 members, out of which 3 were to be made by Indians, except the post of Chief Commander. Get a point? So 1919 Government of India Act can be a major landmark in the evolution of Indian administration. First, relaxation of central control over state subjects. Number 2, diarchy at the province level. Number 3, bicameralism at central legislature. Number 4, direct election. And number 5, 50% reservation to Indian in Executive Council of Governor General. Getting point? In 1935, Government of India Act came. It was the last major efforts during British rule. It removed provincial diarchy and gave provincial autonomy, which led establishment of responsible government at province level. It also made provision of All India Federation, which was to be consisted of British province and princely states. However, princely states were not interested, that's why it did not come into existence. However, there was provision of you can say federation having central list, provincial list, concurrent list, etc. But as I told you, due to non-acceptance by princely states, it did not come into existence. This act also made provision for diarchy at union level. Here also the subjects were to be divided into heads, transfer subject and reserve subjects. But due to non-acceptance by Congress, this provision also did not come into existence. This act made out provinces, out of 11 provinces, bicameral legislature, in which Bengal, Bihar, Madras, then Assam, then Bombay and United Province were made bicameral legislature, means legislative assembly and legislative council. However, much restrictions were put on them. Getting a point? So, India, in India, the governance was or administration was taking place in accordance with provision of Government of India Act 1990, not 1935 Act, because several provisions of 1935 Act did not come into existence. In the meanwhile, several developments took place like Cripps proposal, August plan, then cabinet mission. But the major incident took place in 1947 when Indian Independence Act came. This act made India independent and sovereign state, and it abolished its responsibility to British Parliament. It made responsible government at both province level and state level, province and national level, means Governor General and Governor were made constitutional head, and they were supposed to act on the advice of Indian minister. This act gave dual role to Constituent Assembly, first to frame constitution and to act, you can say, in interim parliament till election and Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha formation takes place to take place. So this was the provision of Indian Independence Act 1947. Getting point? So this is all about the development of constitutional government in India. Now I will discuss how the evolution of civil service took place. You know, civil is as old as Indian political system. During Mughal administration and Maurya administration also, you find existence of civil services. But the present civil service is basically outcome of British rule to India. In East India Company period, the civil servants are recruited for trade practices, trade activities. Get a point? In 1765 onwards, the term civil servants was used officially for them, as they started doing administrative and financial activity. After 1764 Battle of Buxar, the British got administrative financial power. Get your point? So that time there was hierarchy. First there was they get entry as apprentice, then they become writer, then factor, then junior merchant, then senior merchant. Get your point? There is no confusion. In 1772, Warren Hastings appointed the post of collector. So Warren Hastings laid foundation of civil services in India. But Lord Cornwallis is considered father of civil services in India. He divided civil servant services under two heads: covenanted civil service and uncovenanted civil service. Covenanted civil service were higher civil services. These services were reserved for British and European people. Their service condition was very attractive, and to enter into services, they were supposed to sign and contract with company. That's why that is called covenanted services. And non-covenanted services were inferior services. This is for Indians, and there was no provision like contract, and service condition was also very poor. Getting point? In 1800, that time the training was given in British University. To give training in India itself in 1800, Lord Wellesley established Fort William College in Calcutta, but did as company director did not accept it. That's why in its place in 1806, East India College was established in Haileybury in England, and the training arrangements were managed there. At a point, that time there was recruitment on the basis of patronage. Those youth from those youth from royal family studying in Dublin University, Cambridge University, Oxford University, London University were directly inducted into civil services as on patronage basis. But there was demand to introduce merit system. As I told in 1833 Charter Act, there was somewhat thrust also to remove this system and to introduce open competitive system. But due to non-acceptance by board of directors, it was not continued, not introduced. 1853 it was done, and in 1853 the system of patronage was removed and open competitive system was introduced. Get a point? And in 1854, a committee was constituted under chairmanship of Lord Macaulay to give its practical shape to 1935 and 1853 Charter Act provision. In 1855, for the first time, ICS exam was conducted in London. Lord Macaulay is considered father of civil services, Indian civil ICS. Getting point? There is no confusion. Indians were also allowed to take participation in the exam. In 1864, for the first time, an Indian called Devendranath Tagore became ICS officer. Getting point? He was the brother of Rabindranath Tagore. In 1861, Indian Civil Service Act came, and it made provision for reservation of some post of non-covenanted civil services for uncovenanted civil services. Get a point? It was one major step towards Indianization of civil services. In 1870, there was provision of statutory civil services for the princes of princely estates to be directly inducted into civil services. In 1879, this came in existence. The induction was done. In 1882, 1886, Acheson Commission was established. It was recommended major changes in civil services. It has recommended to remove covenanted, uncovenanted, and statutory classification, and to be replaced by imperial civil service, provincial civil service, and subordinate civil services. It has also given, it has not accepted the recommendation to request to conduct exam, ICS exam in India. In 1912, Islington Committee was constituted. A commission was constituted. It has recommended to classify civil services as class 1, class 2, subordinate, and inferior. It has also given permission in principle to conduct exams simultaneously in India. Getting point? In 1919 Government of India Act, there was provision for conducting exam in all India, in India also. Get a point? That time in 1918, There were that time there 1918 M.E. Gauntlet. For the first time you coined the term All India Services. All India Services were those services which were supposed to work under the Secretary of State. Get your point? That time there were 9 All India Services like Indian Civil Service, Indian Police Service, Indian Forest Service, Indian Forest Engineering Service, Indian Service of Engineers, Indian Civil Veterinary Service, Indian Medical Service, Indian Education Service, Indian Agriculture Service. But as I told in 1919, several subjects from center transferred to states. Get a point? So these all India services lost relevance. So in their number reduced to 5, then 3, and at the time of independence only there were 2 all India services. First Indian Civil Service and second IP, Indian Police. Getting a point? Then I told that in 1933, Lee Commission was constituted. It has recommended to establish Central Public Service Commission. As a result, in 1926, Central Public Service Commission was constituted. In 1922, for the first time, ICS exam was also conducted in India, in Allahabad, along with exam conducted in London. Get your point? So in 1926, Central Public Service Commission was constituted and Ross Barker was made first chairman. Get your point? In 1935 Act, there was provision to make Central Public Service Commission as Federal Public Service Commission and also to constitute Public Service Commission in province level. In 1929, Madras became first state to establish Madras Public Service Commission. At the time of independence, we have 2 All India services, Central Services, Provincial Service, Subordinate Services, Federal Public Service Commission, Provincial Public Service Commission, which were not only continued after independence but also given constitutional status. There was some hue and cry for a continuance of All India services, but due to personal insistence of Sardar Patel, All India services continued even after independence. That's why Sardar Patel is called father of All India services. Getting a point? Now, I will discuss evaluation of secretarial system. You know, in India, the present secretarial system is outcome of British rule to India. But you know, during British rule, secretariat was not developed in very systematic and proper way. It was rather developed in very random or very a systematic form as per requirement. In 1773 Charter Act, a regulating act, there was provision of Governor General of Bengal to aid and advise. There was council of 4-member executive council. Then there was also provision of the secretariat of 4 departments, separate secretary for each department, and also post of chief secretary. At the level of chief secretary, first appointment took place in 1999 during Wellesley phase. Getting a point? This post was during British rule was removed from central level and was adopted by state level. Getting a point? So in 1843, for the first time, the Secretariat of Government of India was separated from Secretariat of Bengal, because in the beginning Secretariat of Bengal was also functioning as Secretariat of India, Government of India. But in 1843 it was separated, and it was consisted of 4 departments. In 1857 I told portfolio system was introduced. In 1861 it was given statutory recognition. Get your point? As the time goes on, freedom struggle got momentum, and World War unrest started. Then British functioning role and functioning increased. As a result, number of departments in Central Secretariat also increased. In 1919, there were 9 departments working under Central Secretariat. During this period, several committees were also constituted, like Maxwell Committee, Wheeler Committee, Livingston Committee, etc. They recommended to introduce centralized recruitment system, written record system to make tenure system more effective one. I must point out here that in 1905, tenure system was introduced to bring some sort of mobility of personnel between secretariat and field offices. Getting a point? At the time of independence, there were 18 departments under Central Secretariat, which were made ministry after independence. In 1947, a secretarial reorganization committee was constituted under Girja Shankar Bajpayee. Getting point? So what I mean to say, whatsoever we have in secretariat were developed during British period. Wheresoever development of provincial administration is concerned, during British period, East India Company period, provinces were divided into heads, regulating province and non-regulating province. Regulating province were those provinces which were regulated by separate act, like Bengal, Madras, and Bombay were regulating province, which were established in beginning. But in course of time after 1857, several new provinces were also inducted, and they were called non-regulating provinces, which were governed by a common law. At a point, Assam, Punjab, etc. come under non-regulating province. During Crown period, provinces were divided into 3 heads: Governor's province, Lieutenant Governor's province, and Chief Commissioner's province. Big province were Lieutenant Governor's province, small province were called Lieutenant Governor's province, and Northeast Indian province were called Chief Commissioner's province. Get a point? At that time, in 1857, in 1887, 1870, there was thrust of financial decentralization by Lord Mayo. It gave financial power to provincial administration to make local body more effective one. In 1919, provincial administration got impetus, and while there was provision of provincial diarchy. So that time, for the first time, under provincial autonomy, although it was in a limited form, was introduced. In 1935 Act, the provincial autonomy in full swing was given, and there was also provision of All India Federation consisting of Indian British province and the princely states. As I told, since the princely states were not interested, it did not come into existence. But as a whole, during British period, provinces were not enjoying too much power and autonomy. They were working like a glorified municipality only. Now, wheresoever financial and revenue administration is concerned, in British were highly impressed by Mughal administration, wheresoever financial administration is concerned, revenue administration is concerned. And for the time, that's why for a long period they let continue Mughal system in existence, and they superimpose their own system on existing Mughal system. In 1772, as I told, that post of district collector was created to collect revenue at district level. Getting point? In 1786, getting point? The first time board of revenue for Bengal was created to handle revenue administration at the state level. The board of revenue, what we have present now, was started in 1786 in Bengal first of all. In 1753, Let me point out, the Office of Indian Audit and Account was created. Getting a point? In 1829, getting a point, the Office of Divisional Commissioner was created as intermediary for link between, you can say, state and district administration. Divisional Commissioner. In 1810, Finance Department was created in the Executive Council of Governor General, which became Ministry of Finance after independence. Getting point? In 1857, the post of Auditor General was created. In 1860, for the first time, Budget of India was presented by James Wilson. In 1892, legislative members were given power to discuss on budget. In 1919, get a point? You can say Public Account Committee was constituted. Then you can say the CAA Auditor General was made independent of executive. In 1921, railway budget was separated from general budget. Getting a point? In 1935, the status of Auditor General was gave status of court judge of federal court, and in 1935 also Reserve Bank of India was constituted. So these are all development with regard to financial administration. Getting a point? Wheresoever revenue and judicial administration is concerned, let me tell you, British were equally concerned about the existing Mughal system, as justice administration is a very sensitive one. That's why British were not interested to interfere too much in this matter. That is why they let it continue for a long period. In 1793, Cornwallis deprived collector of judicial power and created a post of district judge. Getting point? In 1860, getting point? 61, the High Court were established in all provinces. In 1861 also, Indian Penal Code and Criminal Procedure Code were codified. In 1935, Federal Court was established, which became Supreme Court after independence. Get a point? So, in judicial administration, very limited but very significant development took place in course of time. Wheresoever evaluation of local administration is concerned, I must divide the local administration into two heads. The local administration in urban area and local administration in rural area. Wheresoever local administration in urban area is concerned, it developed during British rule. Wheresoever local administration in rural area is concerned, it developed only after independence with establishment of Panchayati Raj. Wheresoever urban development is concerned, in 1687, Madras Corporation, Municipal Corporation was established. During Municipal Corporation in Madras in 1687. In 1726, Municipal Corporation were constituted in Bombay and Calcutta also. In 1841, Municipal Council was constituted in all towns of West Bengal province. By 1850, Municipal Council were constituted in all towns of India. In 1870, Lord Mayo brought Financial Decentralization Trust, in which province were given financial autonomy and financial power with regard to local self-organization. Very point. In 1882, Lord Ripon introduced a resolution that is called Magna Carta of Local Self-Government. This act has several important provisions which were of very innovative nature. That's why Lord Ripon is considered father of local self-government. Since this provision of this act were not accepted and implemented due to non-acceptance by British rule, but it has several new provisions like constitution, establishment of area council in each and every district. There was provision of direct election, regional council, or provision of regional council, then direct election, then with a financial power given to them, surname or title is also given to them to make member more glorified or exclaimed one. Then the control was from internal, not from external. This was also made provision. As I told, the provision of 1882 Lord Ripon's resolution were very striking ones. That's why it was not accepted. In 1907, Decentralization Commission was constituted, and 1909 it gave recommendation. In 1919, at provincial hierarchy provision, the local self-government was kept under transferred subject. Get a point, and it came under under the influence of Indian minister. Get a point. So you can say that 1990 can be a major landmark in the evolution of local self-government in India. In 1924, Cantonment Act was passed by central legislature to manage affair of civil population nearby cantonment area. In 1935, provincial autonomy was given and local self-government was kept under the provincial subject in All India Federation provision, which continued even after independence. So what today discussed all about the British rule in India. We found during British rule, Indian administration got enormous development. It has significant influence on the nature and the structure of Indian administration. This administration was purely regulatory nature. It was elitist nature. It was non-participative nature. It was having limited function. It was mainly concerned with revenue collection, maintaining law and order, and upholding the interest of colonial rule. Getting point? It has brought several innovations and changes while keeping its own interest. However, its contribution to Indian administration cannot be denied. It has influenced Indian administration in heart and spirit significantly. Still, after 70 years of independence, we find several features of British administration still continue. Getting a point? So, last time you may have heard the government of India has brought amendment in the act which was for protection of medical personnel or paramedical personnel, which was enacted during British rule and was continuing till now. Now recently, before two or 3 days, it was enacted. So this thing you require to understand it, how much British rule in India influenced even after independence. However, after independence, several changes were introduced and is still continuing. But there is no denial that the British administration has influenced Indian administration and in its nature and its structure significantly, and its influence can be still felt. Okay, so you try to write your own one answer and try to post me. There are 3 types of questions. One question was that trace or discuss British evolution of British Indian administration during the British rule. That is very big question. There was one question that traced on the Indian development between 1857 to 1935. That is little better one. And once there was question that in the British administration has influenced the nature and the structure of Indian administration significantly, whether this influence still continues, this was asked. So you have to write any question, or you consult one genuine book, go through, listen my lecture twice, thrice, and try to write your own answer. If you have any difficulty, you can contact me. Okay, thanks, enjoy.